All right, everybody, let's talk about the season 1 update. I'm gonna go through the good and then I'm gonna go through the bad. Just real quickly, I don't have running water at the moment. That's why there's no face cam or anything. But moving on, I've had time to sort of let my thoughts settle and stew, and I feel like I've kind of solidified my opinion on things. So let's get the good out of the way. Basically, all of the quality of life changes to the base game are really good. The dungeon changes are really nice. Got rid of a lot of the really annoying stand in the circle mechanics. All of the other quality of life changes are great, to the loot filter, to the crafting, to the void fragments. Everything's really nice in terms of the quality of life changes, right? And unfortunately, it's kind of where the good for season 1 stops. Basically, all of the actual season 1 content is pretty garbage, to be frank. Let's start with the seasonal buff mechanic, the inversion reinforcement. Pretty much all the buffs here are incredibly underwhelming and lackluster. That I just don't know what they were thinking, to be honest. These buffs are basically entirely meaningless. The only ones that are actually at least decent are the recovery buffs. And this is only because they're just passive restore HP when next to allies, and gain MP back once a minute. It's very just. The buffs are just kind of there, and they just kind of happen. They're nice, but they're not amazing. They're not game changers by any means. One of the buffs does seem potentially really crazy on Glay, but that's only on one character, right? So overall, incredibly disappointing is how I would describe the seasonal buff mechanic. Now, moving on to the invasion dungeons, I do first want to say that I assume that by the time they decided to course change from standing in circles, it was simply too late to change the mechanics for invasion dungeons. But that does not change the fact that the mechanics themselves are incredibly boring and badly designed, right? The color matching mechanic, where you stand on the right colored plate, is probably the most boring mechanic I could possibly think of to add to a game like this, and I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to begin with. And the pattern matching mechanic, while not as terrible as I initially thought it was once I kind of figured out some strats to make it a little easier, is just absolutely awful. It's incredibly tedious and just incredibly unfun to interact with. I really don't know what they were thinking with it. And before anyone tries to say skill issue, I was able to clear the Echo Swamp one sub 6 minutes very easily both times. So definitely not a skill issue. I was able to very easily get gold on the infiltration mission with the pattern matching mechanic, and that's despite having some memory issues. My memory's really bad. The memory puzzle mechanics are particularly difficult for me because, again, I have very bad memory. But yeah, the invasion dungeons just absolutely terrible, and the fact that they're limited twice a day kind of connects to the next issue. Actually, before we get to that, I did decide to wait until the next day to see if the invasion dungeon mechanics would be any different. And as you can probably tell from the background footage, they did have different mechanics in today's invasion dungeons. This one, you just kill enemies and you collect these pickups and you go deposit it in a thing. I'm gonna say, as a mechanic, in terms of how interactive it was and how annoying it is to deal with, it's definitely far better than the previous ones. It is literally just kill enemies, run around, and then shove it into a box, right? But I gotta say one quick thing, that it does feel like these invasion dungeons are balanced around Bunny, and I don't think that's a good thing because not every character is the ad clearing, speed running specialist that Bunny is, right? But it does feel like the gold timers are kind of balanced around Bunny, at least to some extent. I think they could be loosened up a little bit, and I don't think it would really be a big deal. But I think it would be nice that if you wanted to run these dungeons without Bunny, because as it is, I just feel like you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage if you want to play anyone other than Bunny in these dungeons. And that is the grind for Haley. So you need 36 fragments for each of her parts. You get 3 fragments guaranteed if you get a gold time from the invasion dungeons. So if you get her exclusively from invasion dungeon farming, you're looking at 12 days minimum. That's with perfect RNG, which you're not going to get, let's be honest, of farming invasion dungeons, which is pretty ridiculous. Now, you can get her fragments from regular dungeons as well, but it seems to be somewhere between a 10 and a 20% drop, and you only get 1 fragment per drop. So you're looking at, potentially hundreds of dungeon runs for this one character. This character grind is easily worse than every Ultimate Descendant, and it's not even close. Even like Ultimate Glay was way easier to farm with all her parts being 6%. And you know, Isachenko, the actual character herself looks pretty fun and looks quite good. The grind for her is absolutely insane, and I kind of just refuse to give them $18 for a regular character. It's kind of insane. I have two theories here. One, they're well hunting, and in a couple days they'll probably nerf the amount of materials we need. This might happen anyways, even if that wasn't the original intention, because there's obviously a lot of community outcry about this issue because it is, again, just an absolutely insane grind. And then my other theory is that they're just so desperate to slow down player progression that this was the best thing they could think of to try and like keep people playing longer. But this is probably the single worst to drive player retention that they could possibly go for if that was the intention. I don't know really what else to say here. It's just really bad. Hopefully they rework it and they don't bring this sort of like insane grind mechanic back in the future. I would just rather gamble on the 6% rolls, to be perfectly frank. But yeah, that's going to be about it for this video. And as always, a quick thank you to members before we wrap up the video. Your support is really appreciated. And anyone who wants to support the channel, monetary or otherwise, always greatly appreciate a lot. Even just watching, liking, subscribing, all that sort of stuff really helps the channel. And again, I really appreciate your support. But that's gonna be it for this video. You guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one.